Hello, and welcome to the Couples GBCCF, our Facebook page, especially for couples. And today we have a special guest. And this month we are talking about finances and our focus, and we have a challenge going on. If you want to find out about the challenge, you need to go into the group to find out. But right now, I have the pleasure of introducing you to a special couple. And I'm going to read a little bit of their bio and then we're going to get started. Thank you for joining and thank you for the replay viewers. Welcome to the broadcast. Well, I want to welcome Desmond and Porsha Green. They reside in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and they have three children, two 16-year-old boys and a 24-year-old daughter. They've been married for 12 years and both served in the armed forces. Over a 5-year stretch, they went from living paycheck to paycheck and drowning in debt to becoming debt free, including their house and recently purchased in 2019. So, welcome to the broadcast, Desmond and Portia. We're so glad you're here.
Thank you for having us. We're so
Glad to be here.
excited.
So, tell us just a little bit about yourself before I start bombarding you with questions.
Go ahead.
Okay. We've been on this journey now for 5 years, and it was a struggle at times. But when we started off basically like many of your viewers, or like many that may be watching it, where we didn't really have a plan in place for how to get out of debt and how to improve our financial situation. But we found a program that allowed us to do that. And were able to move from getting out of debt, a significant amount of debt, to getting to a point where we could purchase a house and pay it off in a very short period of time. So,
And we have someone who's here. We can't see their face, but they say hi, everyone. So welcome. We're glad that you're here. Okay. I'll be asking questions, and sometimes it's both of you can answer, whoever feels led to answer. So I want to start out with asking how much debt you talked about debt and the challenges it is as a couple and even as an individual to not get into debt and to deal with debt. So how much debt did you pay off?
Well, originally we had $173,000 of consumer debt. So that wasn't including our house. We had credit cards, student loans. We owed 50,000 in cars at the time. And you name it, we had it. Medical bills that we just didn't pay, tickets, a wider range of debt.
timeshare.
Yeah, we had a timeshare. Yes.
Oh wow.
Yes. Yeah.
Welcome, Tracy Ann, to the broadcast. And if you have questions that you would like to ask Desmond and Portia, this is your opportunity. Put the questions in the comments and we'll try to get to them. And if we don't get to them right now, we'll come back and answer it in the chat. So you've kind of answered my next question, what kind of debt it was. And just kind of start with a kind of a general question as we're talking about debt and finances in a marriage. When you got married, did you combine your income?
Yes, we combined. We off the top, we combined our income. We, started one bank account that we utilized to pay all the bills, things of that nature. And we also started a budget. I had already been familiarized with doing a budget, but I didn't do one as a single person. But when I got married, I was like, okay, we need to do a budget. So we did that off the top. But even though we had a budget and we combined our finances, it was very chaotic. We was each going, taking money out the bank, just not really focusing on following our budget. And so it caused a lot of stress in our marriage. So, but along the whole time, we still kept our finances together and continued to budget.
what advice would you give to couples who still separate their income? It's his income and her income, and and what would you say are some of the advantages of doing it together?
You want to go ahead?
Yes, I'll say this. One thing about it, and she did mention about the stress portion. But when you have a plan and you're going the same direction, then that makes everything better and it reduces the stress. And part of being on a plan where both people are committed is basically having a budget, being on the same budget, having the same account. In most cases, if you decide that, hey, you control this money and I'll control that money, then a lot of times there's no transparency and there's no check and balance system that's necessary for any type program to work. So if you're working together, this is one of those things where if you're trying to get out of debt, working together is a way to do it. If you're working individually, then you may have different goals and different interests, and a lot of times it doesn't work out nearly as good as if you're working together on it. So
And one thing I would suggest is we counsel couples financially, and there are some people who choose to keep their finances separate for various reasons. And my thing is what I always tell people is to still have a general goal, something that you're, focusing on. Let's say you have so much debt you want to pay off. Come to an agreed amount that each person will contribute to one bank account. If they want, like Desmond still has his own, business banking account that's separate from the household. But let's say, each get paid $2,000 a month, and you say, okay, we're going to put half of our money in the budget to work on these goals, in the bank account. So you can also do it that way. But what I've seen from working with couples for now about 5 years is that people who have the same pot that they're working out of, they generally seem to advance quicker than those that have their separate agendas.
mhm,
Okay.
definitely.
One of the comments was says, right, one account, one marriage.
Yeah.
And someone else said, wow, amazing that you paid, that you both paid off your debts. So thanks
It
for,
wasn't easy. It was a lot of work, a lot of sacrifice.
well, we're going to get a little bit more into that. What was that segues into this question. What was the hardest part of getting out of debt?
Before working on getting out of debt, we lived a very lavish lifestyle. And so we was accustomed to spending all the money we made and then some. We was using credit cards, and just going above and beyond our actual income. So one of the sacrifices that was hard for me was cutting back. I was getting my nails done, my hair done every week. I think my hair done every week at the time frame. Shopping, doing, buying whatever I wanted. So I had to scale back all that in order to pay off, to help accomplish the goal that we had set for ourselves. So I think that was the biggest sacrifice for me personally, was changing my lifestyle. I went natural just to get out of debt quicker because it's way less maintenance than getting my hair done every week. I could do it myself.
Wow.
And for myself, I guess for anyone who follows Dave Ramsey or Financial Peace, uh, there's what's called a free spirit, and that's the type of person in a relationship that likes to spend money, of course, and less likely to want to follow budget. So yes, that there were some things that I had to kind of rein in a little bit when we got on the program. But once I understood um, what we're trying to do, and we found a unified goal and got on a plan to get there, then I was able to see the rewards that would happen in the future by us working together to do it. And that's what helped me in that situation.
Thanks for sharing. And I liked how you said you went natural. You save a lot of money on that. Hairdressers, you guys would not like to hear that, but
Yeah.
okay. Do you have any? Did you have more cheerleaders or more naysayers as you were going through that process?
Actually, what I did was I reached out to people in the Facebook community, in our local community that was trying to accomplish the same thing that we was trying to accomplish. So it's amazing how many people out there are working on living a debt-free style, paying off their house, and so I connected with people around them. They became like my tribe of support, along the journey, because we have people in our close circle who they didn't even budget, or they wasn't focused on paying off their debt. They were like, I'm going to die with student loans, and I'm happy with that.
Right.
So those people were more like, I had this one close lady, a friend, and she said, well, that's nice, but remember, things happen, and I don't want you to be disappointed if it doesn't work out as you plan. So we had a couple of people like that in my circle. But my family was very supportive. My mom was blown, at the stuff we was trying to accomplish, because we didn't know a lot of people in our immediate circle that did it, that accomplished that. So
Right.
I had a lot. I surrounded myself with a lot of positive people doing the same thing for encouragement.
Right. And some of the people that I know, um, they didn't come out directly and say it, but for the most part, I could tell that they weren't happy with the idea of having to make sacrifices. Because a lot of times people's lifestyles like, hey, I want what I want now, and so that means if I have to go into debt to get it, then I want to be able to enjoy life. They can, when I die, who cares about the bills kind of mentality. But so the idea of sacrifice now to achieve rewards in the short term, it's for some of my friends, it was kind of over their head. So they were just like, okay, whatever. Hope that works for you.
Especially when we start selling our vehicles, and we was
They probably like, what is wrong with these people?
yeah.
That's right.
They was like, really? Like, I don't think it's that serious. Yeah, like, I don't believe you. And then they would say, I don't believe you made him sell his truck, or you made him sell his boat. And I'm like, wait a minute. He, agreed to do this as well. It's not like I'm just taking all my husband's stuff and selling it on Facebook.
Now that kind of leads me into this question. Were in the beginning, were both of you on board with getting out of debt?
Well, so we took the class, and we was both on board with having financial peace. We knew that the way we was doing things was not working out. It was just a lot of, arguments, chaos, just a lot of stress. But it's like, I mean, I'm very, not extreme, but I'm very focused. When I set a goal, I want to say it. And I'm ready to do anything to meet my goal. So I think we was both willing to do it, but we just had different methods on how to get there. He's like, okay, that's nice. That's a nice goal to have, but I'm not selling my truck. So we was both on board with getting out of debt, but I think if my husband could have had it his way, it would have took a lot longer, because we paid off all that debt in like 22 months. So
Right. And what I'll say really quickly about that is, even for me though, when you start to see a program working, even the things that you don't think you're willing to do, when you actually start seeing it working the way it's supposed to work, then it's some things are a no-brainer. It's like, okay, well, I guess I have to sell the truck. And it came down to where it was the last debt that had to be paid, and by selling the truck, I could pay it. So it was kind of putting me in a position where if I want to pay off these student loans and I sell the truck, I can be done with it, and then I could get another vehicle.
Move on.
So.
We have a comment. Someone says, I agree that once you combine your income, you must have a plan on how you will both manage the account, or you will have confusion and arguments. Find a system that works for both of you.
yes.
Thanks for your comments. And if you guys have any questions for Desmond and Porsha, put them in the comments. Let me see what my next question is, did you follow a specific program? You mentioned something, peace or
Yeah, we followed Dave Ramsey. Financial Peace University is the course that we took. It's a 9-week course, and it covers everything from getting out of debt to budgeting to life insurance, health insurance. So it's not only about getting out of debt, and it's a Christian program, so It involves a lot of biblical principles and scriptures that you really can't dispute. So,
And when you have the word there
yeah.
convicting you and encouraging you, that's really a real important thing.
Yeah, because one thing we had to do was I noticed at the beginning of the class that we was just not on one accord. It was like, this sounds good, but so I said, why don't we fast and pray the length of the course? And let God work on both of our hearts. And that's exactly what happened. God brought me down some and brought him up some because I was like, sell everything. Like I would have lived in a trailer, okay, to get out of that debt. And he was like, I think we're good right here, paying $2,000 a month for rent. Okay. So God really put us, he helped, bring us both on the same page financially, that we was both willing to make sacrifices and to be patient with each other because, money is a very touchy subject and it touches every aspect of your life in one way or another. If it's the way you're living, lifestyle. So it's I can understand it being a hard subject for a lot of people, especially couples, to actually come together and agree on. Which is one reason why we always suggest a class because it's just not your spouse barking in your ear. You need to do this, you need to do that. You get a third party perspective and a group of people who can actually put in their opinions and support along the way.
And I would say both people would need to go to their class. It's not a benefit for just one to go and say, "Oh, this is what he said. This is what she said." That's not going to work. So
Yeah, it takes the two working together. And we'll put the link for that in the comments so that you'll have it. Uh, what would you say? Uh, what are some small for that someone that feels like getting out of debt? That is just a lot for me to think for me to consider. What would you say are some small steps to get started?
Well, my thing would be to first thing do a budget. Do a budget. Try to find holes in your budget, categories that may be higher than they need to be. I think when we started, our food budget was like $700, $800. And towards the end, we got it down to like 450, and we have two kids. So find areas in your budget you can cut. Um, and then also list all your debts, smallest to largest. One thing that really helped us, I mean, his student loans was $75,000. If we would have started off with that amount, we would still be in debt. Because we're like, ain't no way we're gonna pay that off, right? So we started off like our smallest debt was probably $20. We had a whole bunch of little what they call anchor biters. So start off small because then when you start to see the progress, like my husband mentioned, it's motivation and encouragement,
right.
saying, "Wow, I can do this. I can pay off this next one." You know. So that would be my suggestions. What do you think?
Right. Definitely, when you look at what's called a debt snowball, the whole concept of a snowball rolling down the hill is that it gets bigger and bigger and bigger as it goes down the hill. So that smallest debt, the money that you're paying for that, you can apply to the next debt, along with make minimum payments on everything else and just put everything else on that one debt, which is small. And then you go to the next debt as you pay it off. So the process is designed to create its own motivation. And as you get to larger debts, you have more money to put towards it because you've already paid off a lot of the smaller ones a lot easier. So.
Okay. We have it's a long one, but I'm going to go ahead and put it up. It covers it. It says, Miss Eva, I met Portia 2 years ago on the Dave Ramsey group. She doesn't know this, but I left my last job because of her. I wanted her to coach me, and she said, "You need more income." And I told her that in Florida, that was good. She was like, "You have a master's and you can find a better job." So the next thing I know, I was on a job search. Sometimes we are changing people's lives and don't even know it. Last year we paid 35,000 of debt. What inspired me was those credit card earnings. In her words, the plan works.
Oh my gosh, I don't even remember that.
Thank you for sharing. Um, Thank you for sharing that. And we can't see your face because there's a link that you have to check to allow Facebook to show your face. But thank you so much for taking the time and sharing that.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I had when we had to cut up our credit cards, which is very hard for me to do. I made earrings out of a pair of them, one of them. So I used to wear them all the time to classes and things of that nature for encouragement.
Right. What would you say to couples who at the end of the month have run out of money and it's just hard for them to hear this kind of conversation? What would you say to them?
One thing I would say would be, every time that we work with somebody in their finances and I work with their budget, it's amazing how much money I find. I'm telling you, people are like, oh my gosh, from like we had mentioned, cutting subscriptions, uh, grocery money, all kind of areas. It's amazing once you sit down and actually do a budget, how much money you actually have that you're probably, that you're usually spending and you don't even know it. So they say when you do a budget, it's like getting an instant raise. And that has happened 100% of the time that I sit down with somebody. It's amazing. So, and not only that, I would suggest, just like I suggested to that lady, to go out there and look for, other opportunities to make income. There's when we was getting out of debt, we just didn't have our two main jobs. I think we had to combine 5 to 6 extra side jobs that we was working on in order to help us get out of debt. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you just need a bigger shovel to work with. And sometimes you really just have to look at your expenses. With that much debt, there was no reason, no logical reason why we was renting a $2,000, a month house. We didn't need that much house. So we cut that back to $1,100. We got an apartment, but that was $900 right there. And not to mention how much we saved in electricity, gas, all those household expenses decreased because we went to an apartment. So sometimes the harsh reality is that you may be living house poor, or above your means. I know some people have, you may not be able to afford getting your hair done every week if you're drowning in debt, and it's only temporary. I know I talk to a lot of ladies and they're like, oh my gosh, you want me to stop getting my nails done or not get my hair done? It's only temporary. I'm not saying give it up forever, or get on YouTube. I was on YouTube learning a lot of ways to do my hair. Okay. So sometimes it's just a lifestyle shift that needs to be done. And it's just till you get ahead. Because if you add up all those monthly payments that you're paying in debt, knock off a couple of those. Our car payments was $1,000 a month. So once we paid all that off, that was an extra $1,000 we had a month, to use in other areas. So that's another thing I always try to explain to people is once you start paying off some of that debt, you're going to have extra money in your income to work with and live off of.
Okay. Another question. What was your principal form of payment for spending during the plan? Cash, or did you still have an active credit card?
Okay, based off of our budget, most of what we did, like for instance, when we look at the food, we didn't have any active credit card. Let me say that. That was a debt that needed to be paid, so we actually paid it off, closed them out. But we use cash. In fact, one of the sayings is "cash is king, debt is dumb." So we use our cash to pay off our debt because that is the greatest way to get out of debt is to actually use the finances that you make to do it. So we did that and we just managed every dollar. And that's the biggest thing. So even for part of the question that you asked before, most of the time, people just starting on the budget is like when I put it on paper, it looks one way, but at the end of the month, I'm out of money and, and I still have bills left. So it's not necessarily that they didn't put it on paper correct. You just have to manage every dollar, and you have to be honest with yourself where you're spending it at. And so if you're honest with yourself on where you're actually spending the money, then you can budget appropriately and actually budget in each category. And you can also show discipline in the areas that you may be overspending in.
So do you in reference to that, did you do online purchases?
Hmm?
Someone has asked a question. Did you do any online purchases while
We're
you?
not big online shoppers, but when we do, we use, we use our debit cards. That's what, like on Amazon. I do love NFL, so I do buy majority of my football apparel online, and we just use our debit cards. We'll budget for it, and I'll just make sure, I have that money in the account to cover it, and that's how we usually do that.
Of course, and it's not that you don't have spending money. It's just
Yeah.
that you put everything in a budget. So if you budget everything, then it's easy to manage.
And one thing my husband did is he'll take like he'll get his spending money and his gas money. We do 2 weeks at a time. So he'll take his money and he'll put it in his bank account, which is separate from the main account because that did not work. All that swiping and you know. So he'll put it in his own separate banking account, and that's how he keeps track of his money.
Right.
Now I keep track of mine strictly cash. I hide it in my closet, and and I put out a little at a time.
Okay,
And then
gotcha.
if I want to make a major purchase, like, some football apparel, then I'll put it in the bank. But it helps me also keep track of what I'm spending because not only do I have to go online and look at it, but I have to say, okay, I have to take this money out of my little shoebox and put it in the account. And then, so it helps me not to be just swiping like crazy and getting excited.
Yeah.
Well, so we have a question from the audience. So it says some followers of Dave Ramsey struggle with the idea of tithing while in debt. Did you faithfully tithe on your journey out of debt? Great question. Thank you.
Yeah, actually, Dave Ramsey encourage, like if they take Financial Peace University, he
Mhm.
actually encourages tithing while getting out of debt. And so the way we looked at it was we tithe getting into debt. I mean, we tithe our whole lives. So now that we're trying to pay off the debt that we accumulated due to, our style of living that we was trying to obtain, it wouldn't be fair to, their house that we were supporting in our church to not tithe. So we continue to tithe the whole time.
Correct.
Yeah. Mhm.
We have another question. How did you do grocery shopping and other household expenses, cash or debit card? What are the disadvantages of regular use of a debit card? And that's question is from Jody.
Okay. Yes. As far as most of the regular expenses, we actually pulled out the cash so that we can actually put it in envelopes based off what we're trying to do with it. And so we use the envelope system. That's basically what we believed in. And so whenever we're ready to do something like gas or grocery shopping, then basically you take the cash out of that envelope to do what you need to do. And in doing that, you get instant feedback on what you have and what you're applying it to. And when you run out of money, you're done. When you're getting low and you have more money left, you have to make wiser choices because your money is short.
And in the beginning, it was the hardest because we were so used, we had like a Sam's credit card. So we were so used to going to the store, just using our credit card or just swiping our bank card. So when we said, okay, we're going to do this and anything extra is going to the debt, we had to stick to, we have $450 a month. So if we got towards the end of the month and we got like, let's say $30 and we have a week left, we'd have to come together and be like, all right, baby, we got $30. We go through our pantry, go through the fridge and say, what do we have, that we could make a meal with? And we would write down, okay, if we just get some chicken, we got vegetables, we got this, and we would make it stretch. We would make it work. But when you have a debit card, you don't have to make those options. You could just, I'm going to the grocery store and spend $100 and not even think about it. And actually, you spend more money with plastic than you do cash.
Correct.
Because you're not feeling it. You're not seeing it. Every time I go to the grocery store, I have to open my envelope and be like, oh, let's see. Maybe I don't need that ice cream. So you're more conscious of your spending.
Okay.
Yeah.
Someone asked another question. So have a joint account and individual spending accounts? Is that what you're saying?
We have a joint account, and my husband has an individual business account that he does use for his individual account. I don't. We have I just use our joint accounts.
Okay.
But I will say this, my husband does not have a bank card to our regular account because he gets a little swipe happy. So he actually forfeited his. I didn't take it on his own years ago. So
Mhm.
we do that just
You
to
got
help him out for a
yeah.
thing.
I'll say that. I'll say this real quick.
Mhm.
One person really does need to be over the budget, you know, and the other person is not an innocent bystander. They're an equal important participant in the
Mhm.
process, and all decisions are made together. But one person needs to make sure that everything is managed. It makes it so much easier. When you have two hands in the pot, then it ain't gonna fly. You know?
That's the beauty of working together as a couple. So
Yeah.
where you where you're both working together, you have the goal, and maybe one person is in charge, is kind of looking out for the finances, but the other person is support, and you're working together. Now, Ruth, thank you for putting in your question. She says, if you have student loans and work in public service and have no plans to change fields, and it would take you the same amount of years left to pay it as you have left on the program, do you pay it off?
One thing I suggest is I think Biden's trying to put away with that program altogether. But let's say that you're close to, that time frame or what have you. One thing that I suggest to people is to save that money and put it in a separate account. Because God forbid if that program gets erased, you still owe all that money and the interest
And the interest.
from what I'm hearing. And it's such a small percentage of people that's actually being approved for it.
It's like less than 2%.
Yeah.
So out of 100, out of every 100 people that literally apply and qualify for the program, not to mention the ones that don't qualify, but out of every 100 people that qualify for the program and apply, they're all in a waiting or holding pattern, and only 2% of the people actually receive the money. And so that leaves the other 98% who are paying more in interest and penalties and fees because they waited. And so that's what the challenge is. So I've spoken to a lot of people about that. And when you do the math over the years, you're paying 2 to 3 to 4 times as much with hopes that your loan's going to get paid off versus if you actually paid it off yourself or at least set the money to the side to pay it off.
And the interest loans on student loans is insane. The interest rates. When we got married, I think my husband told me he had $50,000 in student loans. So we put that on our little debt snowball sheet. When we got to his student loans, it was $73,000. I about lost my mind. I was like, what in the world? Like you said 50,000, okay? But it was interest. It accrued daily. And it was crazy because I would call one week and they would say 73,200. And then I would call the next week and it'd be 300 and four. That's why I was like, look, we need to sell that truck because, like, I mean, and even when it's in holding like that with them programs, the interest is still accruing.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
So
that's
So
a
not
good
having to pay does not equate to not getting charged interest. You're getting charged interest every day you don't pay for it.
every day, it's insane.
I have another comment that said that's a great point. You tithe going into debt. Why not tithe paying off debt? Give God what is His, and you will be surprised on the return. Why
Yeah, we were
tithe?
blessed. Yeah. We were so blessed during our journey. People just, I mean, I was selling everything. So from people would buy stuff and I would tell them we're working on getting out of debt and they would throw in an extra $20. I mean, we sold our cars within weeks. I mean, it was just, God constantly opened doors during our journey, which is why we was able to pay off our house so quick. And we said if you're just faithful with what God has given you, He will give you more. And that's exactly what was happening.
That's exactly.
This will be our last question. What do you say to people who have high student loan debt, like your husband's, and don't think it's possible to pay it off?
Okay. Um, I have a lot of friends that still have student loans, and they have just determined to themselves that they'll actually die with their student loans rather than, by the time they pay them off. And they're completely fine with making the minimum payment for the rest of their life. But that's not the answer. And so I would tell you this. When looking at how much you're actually paying on the student loan and for the length of time that you're actually paying on it, that money could be used for so much more to be helping to build your future and things that you want to do in the future. So by just making the sacrifice and just making the payment and sticking to a budget, find the money in the budget and in your sacrifice so that you can actually use a program like we said, like we did, or a death snowball or something, so that by the time you actually get ready, you have a lot more money that will pay off the highest debt. And so that's what I recommend. If you find a program that works for you to get from the smallest to the largest debt paid off, by the time you get to your student loans, it'll be way easier to pay those student loans off.
I just want to say you can do it.
Yes,
You
you
would be
can.
amazed. Along our journey, I've met single mothers, one income family. I know a guy who has like 7 kids, him and his wife, and he's the only one that works, and they have all their debt paid off, including their house. If you're willing to put in the sacrifice and the work, you can pay off any debt you have.
One last question for you. What's next for you guys financially?
You want to say? You want me to? Okay, look, let me say this from the perspective of a free spirit. Okay, one thing I can say, when getting out of debt and setting goals, you always have to have something to look forward to, especially for the type of person that I am. I need something to look forward to so that I can stay focused today. So and so as long as I can re-reference that, then that makes things a lot better. So what we did, in order to pay off the house, we actually created a wish list while we're in debt, while we're paying off the house. It says when we pay off the house, after we pay off the house, we're going to take this much time, and the extra money that we are actually applying to the debt, we're actually going to create a list of things that we want to do and we want to accomplish. That's more for fun, things that we want to have once this debt is paid off. And so we basically work together on making that list. And when the debt's paid off, then we can execute the list. So then now we're living in the phase of actually doing some of the things that we want to do and using the money to pay those things off. So that's what we're doing.
Excellent. And Ruth says, Portia, did you stop doing your hair after you paid off your debt?
I went back and got my hair done maybe twice, 3 times since then. Because the thing is, we still have financial goals. So one thing I've learned during the journey of getting out of debt is the more money I save here, I can spend there. Okay.
And then
So
your last
yeah, but
her last
we also love giving. We went crazy. We paid off our house in November, and we went crazy around Christmas time giving. It was just, we blew our budget on giving in December. So yeah.
okay. And last comment says, you guys are awesome and look so good together. We are blessed to have such great nuggets from both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And someone said I was going to go back up and find it so that you can see it for sure. Yeah, here it is. She said, Portia,
Oh, thank you.
oh,
Thank you. You know, another thing we did when we first, for a majority of our marriage, we was living on both our incomes. So one thing we did was we said, okay, let's get our budget down to where we can live off of one of our incomes. And so we did that a few years back, and we still live like that. We make sure that I could pay with my income all the bills, because God forbid something happened to him with his job or anything, we won't be in a financial stress, in which a lot of people experienced last year during COVID. One person lost their job, and people wasn't able to pay their bills or what have you. So one thing I always encourage couples to do is try to lower your expenses, as much as possible to live off of one person's income, because God forbid something happens. Or let's say somebody wants to go start their own business. Where if you can depend on, let's say, the husband's income, then you can forego the wife's income and be able to, go off and do that. So it's a lot easier to follow the will of God for your life if you're not stressed financially. I really do believe that that's one way that the devil tries to keep us in bondage, even to jobs we don't like, or, just doing things we're not comfortable with because of the financial mess that we've gotten ourselves into. So I would strongly encourage everybody just to see how, how least they can live off of. That's what my husband was like, you're just trying to get us down to nothing. No. But now that we're in this stage, dude, all that extra income, we can use it to pay off debt or do things around the house. Right. It's so much easier to save money for a car. You can do all those things and it's not a stress. Or even just give. If something comes up at the church, we feel pulled in our heart to give, we want to be like, oh my gosh, like, I really want to do that, but how in the world can we do that? Because, we're spending all this money. We could say, oh, okay, that's no big deal. We have that. So,
she said, she said, great advice to live off one income, although you have two. And and someone said, amen, sister. Ruth asked a question. This is going to be our last question. No, yeah. She says, children, what do you set for them? 529 or USMA, which I don't understand. Yeah. So why and why?
Well, actually, because of my medical benefits, our kids have 5 years free tuition in the state of Louisiana. So this is what I told them, because we started late in life. We're in our 40s. And so we was behind in retirement, things of that nature. So I told them they could go in the state of Louisiana, anywhere they want for free. Okay. Or if they plan to go elsewhere, then they need to start planning, scholarships, things of that nature. Or they could follow us and go into the military, which we would love. That's really the main plans for them to go to the military. But with our oldest, what we did was she utilized, my military benefits, and we helped her pay like books, her school fees. And because of the fact that we only live off one income, we could easily do that.
Right.
So we did that right around, she probably 19, probably about 3 years ago, I think. And we was in a position where we could easily pay her books, school fees, help her with her car, things of that nature, as long as she was in school. So,
okay.
Which a lot of people on financial plan actually do. They're able to cash flow their kids' college with help of a 529 or something along those lines. Okay. Now, if we didn't have that, I think we would do a 529. The only thing is, depending upon how many kids you have, because it has to be used for educational purposes. Right. That's the only catch. Right. If our kids are like way younger, like I suggest people who have kids, let's say under 5, they got like 10 years to save for college. I would do just a, beef up the 401k, do a backdoor 401k is when you come to because you can only do like 6,000 a year, but then you could do a backdoor. And I would use that money for, their college expenses. Because then if you get one of them wild childs who's like, I ain't going to school, all that money's just sitting there.
Right.
So.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you, Desmond and Porsha, for being here and giving us the knowledge and encouragement to be debt free. And for those of you who are watching, because this will be on YouTube shortly, and you want to get in touch with Porsha or Desmond, how would you do that?
Only thing I would suggest is through my Facebook. That's how a lot of people contact us. It's Porsha Kelly Green, and my job on there is USAF because it stands out. So that's how you can get in contact with me on Facebook or through email. But honestly, Messenger is the best place to get in contact with us.
Okay. And for Financial Peace University with Dave Ramsey, that's a link. And I know that that's going to be hard for you to write down, but we will put that in the comments. So you'll just be able to click on it and get the information. And that is something that you guys recommend, correct?
Oh, I definitely recommend it. Definitely. Even if you can't get your spouse to go, still go through it. I mean, it's great for both, but
Definitely.
you know, if you can, it is tons of great information. I advise everybody to go through it.
Okay. And we invite you to join the Facebook group. We're in it now, but who are watching the replay, couples, it's facebook.com/groups, uh, couples GBCCF, and join the group. This month we have a financial challenge. And Portia, tell a little bit about the challenge.
Okay, well, every week there's different financial challenges, and they're very, we if you've never done a budget before, if you're just starting off, it's something for everybody. They've picked some great challenges to do. I was even looking at it and like, oh, I need to do this. And then for the winner, it's $100 gift card coming out of my spending money. So y'all better really work hard to get my money. Okay. So I want some comments in the Facebook group, some tips. If you did a pantry challenge, put down meals that you've been able to find just out of the fridge. If you've done a budget, you don't have to list your budget. Just say we did a budget. This, it worked out or what have you, found some money, but just to encourage others along the financial journey. It is not an easy journey to go on, but the rewards are amazing. I'm telling you. I mean, we made a lot of sacrifices, but to be in a position that we're in now, they were worth it 1,000%. I think my husband wishes he would have moved into that trailer, y'all. Yeah.
So below I have the Facebook couple GBCCF. We invite you to join it. We challenge you to join the challenge and take small steps. Take small steps towards becoming debt free. And I always like to, of course, thank you guys for joining and sharing with us. And then I encourage you to schedule time to pray together as a couple and consecrate yourself and your marriage before God. So thank you for now. Thanks for all of you who are joining. Replay viewers, um, take if you have a question that wasn't answered and or you have a comment, still put those in the comments, and we will be checking back and answering those questions. So I'd like to say thank you again and bye for now.
Bye. Thank you.